Hey everybody, Captain Dave Schneider, It's a Guide's Life, and here we are in our first official tutorial. You know how I love to say that. The first thing I want to address is somebody left a comment earlier today questioning about whether or not I already done a kind of a how-to on setting up my chase rig. And it's true that I have done that, but what I'm doing now is I'm actually doing something very specific that involves not just the chasing, but specifically the fluke. And the chasing is one of the ways I rig a fluke. But I want to go through these different baits, and tonight it's the fluke. So bear with me. I hope that you enjoy this. The first thing I want to talk about is just a standard fluke setup. Now, a standard fluke deal is just going to be a fluke on a hook. You know, you're going to go with usually a 5/0. I'll sometimes use a 4/0 hook. You know, a lot of that just depends. Quite frankly, here's a little bit larger hook here. These are the heavier gauge. Of course, I use Trocar. God bless Trocar hook. And then, of course, here is the standard 4/0 Trocar in the non-heavy wire setup. So braided lines will bend these hooks no matter what on some level. So anyway, that's a straight fluke. And the thing I like about fishing a fluke, first of all, is it imitates a lot of different things. Primarily bait fish, of course, but it's the way that it falls and it shimmies when it's weightless. If you've got a non-high wind situation, you throw it out just like everybody. You already know this, man. You throw it out. It becomes a target lure for me a lot of times when I'm fishing it weightless. In other words, a target lure means I'm going to throw it to a target, fish it into that target, pull it out, and throw it to another target. Fishing it back to the boat, sometimes you'll do that weightless, especially if it's shallow grass and things of that nature. Then, of course, a weightless fluke is the way you want to go. This particular one is the one that Gary Long has been using. This is watermelon red. This is the one we've been catching them all on Mullet Lake. This is also the same color we catch them on Lake Okeechobee all the time. But in any case, with the rig itself, this one is hooked almost completely Texas style, and I want you to get a close look at this here. This one is hooked basically Texas rigged. You can see that there's no hook really showing or anything like that. The other way to rig it is Texposed, of course, and Texposed is where you come through the bait just like that, so that you've exposed your hook. And then you just kind of lightly skin hook it, just like that. And that's more the Texposed style. And go either way. If I'm fishing really heavy grass, I'll go Texas. If I'm fishing, in a little bit a situation where it's not going to be hitting a lot of stems and stalks, I'll go Texposed for sure. But this is the standard deal. There are a couple of things that I do to the standard rig that I want you to see. Number one, first of all, I will use something I just call it a hard nose. And basically, I've got two different kinds that I use. And these are, if you look at them here, this is just a plastic bullet weight. And this one is actually a screw lock plastic bullet weight that screws into the end of the fluke. And I like these screw-in weights, quite frankly. Or this isn't a weight, and all you're going to do in that situation is it's going to go on your line, and it's going to screw right into the end of the weight. Now, why do you do that? Listen, you do that because it creates a situation where it'll pull through the grass, and your bait doesn't get pulled down, especially if your bait's pulling down on you a little bit. I love the screw lock style. This one here, if it's pulling down. If I just want to be able to deflect through the grass and stuff, I'll use this little deal here. This little plastic weight. And you can get them. Bass Pro sells them, Tackle Warehouse, of course. You can get them in any of those places. But that's one of the primary things. The other thing I like to do, and you'll see it here, is I will put an eyeball in a fluke. And the way I do that is with a cutting tool. I'll take a plastic cutting tool where you just push a hole through and then put the eyeball in it. These eyeballs are actually a thing. It's not just a rattle. It makes that rattling sound, but it's not just a rattle. It also gives the eyeball effect. And guys, I'm telling you straight up, it was crazy, and you're going to see the underwater footage here throughout this, but it was crazy how important that rattle seemed to be on mullet. I would take my dive rattle and just go clunk, 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 back and forth. And all of a sudden I look up and there's a bass. I mean, and they were coming to that rattle. So I'm gonna tell you straight up, I'm gonna be using rattles a lot more than I have in the past. I think it's critically important, at least for these smallmouth on mullet. And this, this one here, I'll put it next to the audio here, and you can hear it just as I roll it back and forth like this here. You can hear it. And it gives an eyeball effect. If you look at this thing, it has an eyeball effect. And at times that can be in clear water. That can be all right, I played with that enough. But the old eyeball, and if you've never seen these, look them up. I don't have a URL to give you or anything on this. I haven't bought these. I have a bunch. And to be honest with you, I bought them I know I bought them at Bass Pro a long time ago. It's just, I think they were even called eyeball rattles. I think that's what these particular ones are. It's round on both ends, as you can see, and it's a deal here. And if I'm going to do some high-tech rigging with Flukes, this is one of my high-tech rigging deals that I will absolutely do. Okay, so that does. I'm determined to lose those hooks. So that's the basic setup for Flukes without any weight. Now let's jump into Flukes with weights. Of course, the standard weight operation here, you can use the belly weights, and guys, the belly weights like we use on swim baits, they're wonderful. What a belly weight does is it causes the fluke to fall this way as opposed to nose down. If you want the nose down effect, like, if you're dealing with bedded fish or things like that, this looks like something eating eggs. And so the nose down with the weight a bullet weight on the nose can be a good way to do that. But if you just want something that falls and shimmies the same way it normally would, then the belly weights are nice. You can add a belly weight here. You can buy the pre-rigged belly weight setups, that you get with, that you get for the swim baits, which we use on Okeechobee all the time. All right, excuse me. So Texas weight, but I do use some other. I love the screw-in weights, guys. All right, and if I'm gonna, rather than pegging the weight, let me focus it for you here. Rather than peg the weight, I'll put these small, and these are just these, I don't know, it's a Gambler that makes the screw-in weights. I don't remember if it was Gambler. Anyway, there's a couple companies out there that make the screw-in weights. This is a very small one. This is a 32nd right here. And this one right here, I believe, is an 1/8. But again, you screw them right in. I will trim. You see how long that is? You see how long that plastic is right there? I'll trim that right off there so that I have room to get the screw all the way in. I'll trim it right there, even with the screw lock. All right, that's just a little rigging tip for you as well. All right, now, so screwing in a weight like that, I've given you the hard nose, I've given you the rattled eyes. Now, belly rig I've talked about, Texas rig I just talked about. Finally, I want to talk about, and you guys have seen this before, and I have mentioned the chase scene. Guys, I'm going to show you this right now. In fact, I'm going to cut to some video here while I'm talking. It is amazing how cool this looks underwater when you've got the weight in front of the bait, like this one here, and every time the weight goes down, the bait is following it, and it goes like this, and it's just in perfect unison. It is absolutely a chase scene. It is absolutely a predatory response deal. It's a situation where oftentimes you're going to elicit some attention and maybe get yourself a good bite because of this weight. Now this one's a little farther than I like it. This one's about 10 inches. I like it a little bit closer here. You can see, I like this one typically. I like this one to be a lot closer. About 5 inches or so. Now, the other way, and the way I've rigged this one, I've put a bobber stopper. I use the standard bobber stoppers. We've all seen them, right? I put a bobber stopper on. I'll put, in this case, I've got a quarter-ounce tungsten weight, which is a fairly heavy weight, actually. I've got a quarter-ounce tungsten weight, and I've got my swivel. And I use the swivel because I've got a heavy leader on here. This is 20-pound fluorocarbon leader. I use Sea Gear. I use whatever I have handy, but I do like the Sea Gear spools. Kmart or Walmart sells these things. Up in Michigan, they're only like $10. Down south, they're more like 14 or something like that. But that's really cheap for a pony spool of quality fluorocarbon line. So anyway, I'm using a swivel in this situation, of course. Love the swivels. I've talked to you about the multiple sizes that I use. I think that Spro, by and large, makes the best swivels. I've shown you this package before. They make them in different sizes here. This would be a smaller version here and a larger version there. If I'm really wanting the chase scene, I'll go with the bigger one. In fact, I've got another one here that's another company that I like as well that's really big. And you put that big swivel on there, and it's something substantial, that the fish can see, and the fish can see your bait chasing. I will do this chase scene. Well, you know what? I'm not going to talk about all the other ones. I'm talking about flukes today. But I love to use the chase scene with a fluke. If I'm losing, one other thing I'll tell you too, if I'm using a lighter color fluke, oftentimes I'll take my marker, whether it's a spike it marker or something like that, and I like to put vertical lines, just right, right, doom, 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 just like that on both sides. It kind of, in Michigan waters especially, it makes it look a little more perch-like. Especially, if I'm using a white or an albino or something like that, I don't do that necessarily with the solid color ones like this. But that's that's what I like to do with the chase scene rig and with the bobbers. With the swivels. Now, one of the other things too is if you find yourself, if this is wearing out during a day of fishing, this is just a hot little tip for you. This is no charge, all right? But sometimes these slip bobbers will wear out. Oh, by the way, I put the weight in front of the swivel, and the reason I did that in this case is because if I get tension when I'm pulling it through the grass, a lot of times it will move a peg. It'll move a peg down the line. It's not going to move your swivel. So that's why I put it there. And then at the other end, if this wears out, I will take the old pegging nail. If you've never seen a pegging nail, for God's sakes, get some of these babies. There's times when this is the best way to peg a bait or to peg a weight, all right? And it's just a nail. It's a rubber nail. You slide it through the bait, you pull it down tight, you trim it, and you're in business, all right? But if this wears out and you don't want to retie the whole rig, grab a nail, stick a nail in it, rubber nail, and then you don't need to worry about that thing wearing out, all right? And that's what I do with flukes.
Where'd they go in there?
Here it is, here it is.
And they put it up, Nate! And I hope it lives up to our expectations. I like it.
Josh, read the ball carrier. Josh, read the ball carrier.
Tuck the ball.
Can't get loose over the 40-yard line.
Go, Garrett. Untack it.
Marlin the ball carrier. Marlin the ball carrier. Pettis the ball carrier. Nathan Pettis into the end zone. Touchdown.